As the 7th edition of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States Summit came to a close, its 33 member countries signed the Buenos Aires Declaration, pledging to deepen integration, climate action, democratic institutions, and multilateralism. In Peru, Dina Boluarte's government militarizes the Puno region and extends the curfew for 10 more days. Anti-government protests continue in Lima. And in South Africa, a heat wave sweeping across the country has left at least 8 people dead in the last few days. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Tuesday, 33 countries of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States signed the Buenos Aires Declaration, through which they pledged to deepen integration, climate action, democratic institutions, and multilateralism. The 111-point agreement highlights the importance of consolidating Latin America as a zone of peace, advancing food security, and deepening cooperation in health matters. At the close of the event, St. Vincent and the Grenadines Prime Minister, Rafa Gonçalves, receiving the CELAC pro tempore presidency, highlighted the efforts that Argentina and Mexico made to consolidate CELAC in 2022. The declaration also underscored the progress achieved in CELAC's dialogue with extra-regional partners, including the European Union, China, India, the African Union, and the Association of Southeast Asian States. Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez considered this Wednesday that the 7th summit of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States was historic, as it gave up continuity to the revitalization of this multilateral organization. Rodriguez stated that it was an event of compromise, of unity in diversity, and that it paid attention to fundamental regional problems such as climate change, the post-pandemic situation, economic development, the exercise of human rights, and the defense of democracy. The foreign minister also welcomed the opportunity to listen, in the context of the summit, to leaders of other countries that do not belong to the Latin American region and were summoned to the meeting. Finally, he considered that the Buenos Aires Declaration and other special documents approved include references to Cuba with the denunciation of the U.S. blockade and the inclusion of Havana in the serious list of countries alleged to be sponsors of terrorism. On Wednesday, the president of Brazil, Luis Inácio da Silva, held a meeting with his Uruguayan counterpart, Luis Lacalle Pou, where they discussed issues to strengthen bilateral ties. During a joint press conference, Brazilian President Lula da Silva agreed with the proposal of the Uruguayan government, which advocates for revisiting the rules of the common market of the South Mercosur. At the same time, the Uruguayan president defended the possibility of his country unilaterally negotiating trade agreements with nations outside the mechanism. Lula da Silva recalled that the most urgent and necessary thing is for Mercosur to sign a final agreement with the European Union to begin negotiating agreements between the regional bloc and China. On Wednesday in Ecuador, the community of El Triunfo denounced that the Henry Mining Company intends to use the police and the armed forces to enter the site and build camps and platforms in the province of Imbabura. In this context, the community of El Triunfo denounced and accused President Guillermo Lasso for the illegal actions of the mining company and the police. They also detailed that the police execute acts of violence against the citizens in their project to install the company. On the other hand, community members also denounced the presence of private guards and assured that the operations of the Australian mining company have increased its illegal operations. A multi-party commission of Ecuador's parliament has launched an investigation into corruption scandals within the government of President Guillermo Lasso. According to the official announcement, the 7 legislators chosen to form the group will meet for the first time this Thursday and will have up to 30 days to submit a report to Parliament. They will review the audios and documents leaked by the local digital media La Posta, which point to the existence of an alleged corruption network in public companies that would involve former government officials, among others such as Danilo Carrera, brother-in-law of President Guillermo Lasso. In Haiti, the Ministry of Public Health reported on Tuesday another 15 deaths from cholera, bringing the death toll of the deceased to 511. Since the resurgence of cholera 4 months ago, there have been 19,378 confirmed cases and more than 25,000 suspected cases. Still, many cases go unreported. Children ages 1 to 4 are the most affected by this disease. The lack of drinking water, the difficulty of movement due to fear of armed gangs, and extreme weather conditions are fueling the spread of cholera, a disease that affects the intestines after ingesting contaminated water or food. Symptoms include acute diarrhea leading to dehydration, which can lead to death within hours. Haiti launched an oral cholera vaccination campaign last December with the support of the Pan American Health Organization. The country has received about 1.17 million doses of the vaccine. The Community of Caribbean States called on all stakeholders to unite in the search for a consensual agreement on the crisis currently affecting Haiti, one of its 15 members. In a statement, the bloc stressed that it takes note of the efforts made by various groups to negotiate political pacts since 2021 to help resolve the prolonged political impasse in the country. CARICOM emphasizes it remains willing and ready to help achieve that goal, and in that regard began sounding out Haitian parties interested in attending a meeting in a CARICOM member country. Various organizations consider it key that Haiti's political actors definitively reach an agreement to further the resolution of existing socio-economic and security issues. Let us take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. The government of Peru extended the mandatory social immobilization in the department of Puno for 10 calendar days starting on Wednesday, January 25th, while sending troops to the region. According to the measure, people must remain at home from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. The measure is complementary to the state of emergency imposed on January 15th due to the escalation of social unrest in Puno, which also included the regions of Lima, Callao, and Cusco. This announcement comes after one of the most violent days in the historic center of Lima took place on Tuesday, hours after the President Dina Boluarte called for a national truce with demonstrators in order to start a dialogue. The people of Peru continue to take to the streets all over the nation, despite the brutal repression unleashed by the government of Dina Boluarte. Let's take a closer look at the reasons behind the ongoing protests.
Since the ousting of President Pedro Castillo on December 7th, Peruvians have taken to the streets nationwide to reject the government of Dina Boluarte and demand a political solution to the crisis unleashed. Boluarte's regime has met the request with brutal repression at the hands of police and military forces, who have murdered over 60 citizens and left hundreds of injured and detained. Peruvian sociologist and political leader Lucía Albites explains the extreme situation the people of Peru are currently facing.
Since Mrs. Dina Boluarte assumed the presidency through a parliamentary coup carried out in complicity with the Peruvian ultra-right wing, sectors that from day one of Pedro Castillo's presidency tried to break the will of the people, in practice we are experiencing a dictatorial government. There is a systematic violation of human rights. At present, there are more than 60 Peruvian murdered, most of them by gunshot wounds. We have among them a minor who has died with a bullet in his head.
While the administration insists on blaming the demonstrators for the social crisis, it is important to understand the needs and demands of the Peruvian people, for which they continue to risk their lives in the streets.
This situation is a response to a political demand made by the population. Mrs. Boluarte is protagonizing a military response. She is repressing the Peruvian people, instead of giving a political solution to the demands of the people. What is being demanded is the resignation of Mrs. Boluarte, because a person who is responsible for more than 60 dead compatriots due to the repression of the state, cannot stay in office one more day.
In the same way, the people have also raised their voices asking for the closure of the current Congress.
We are also asking for a change in the presiding officers of the Congress. Why? Because in the midst of this political crisis, if Mrs. Dina resigns, the president of the Congress will be the one to govern. And today, the president of the Congress is William Zapata, who is a protagonist, a representative of the far-right sectors in the parliament. That is why what the citizens are demanding is a change in the Congress president's officials, so that whoever becomes president of the Republic can sustain a transitional government in order to call for new elections in the shortest time possible.
Finally, another relevant claim the demonstrators are expressing with their presence in the streets is the possibility of a new constitution that replaces the one designed by Fujimori's Constituent Congress in 1993.
And here comes the third demand, which is a consensus within the protest throughout the national territory, which is that at the time of the new elections, the people should be asked in a referendum whether or not they want a new constitution. It must be said that where these demonstrations are born, those who have been leading this demand that has to do with democratizing Peru and being able to get out of the crisis that have been going throughout for several years and that today is in most critical episode, are the brothers from the south. Regions like Puno, regions like Cusco, like Ayacucho, like Apurimac, who have risen up, and with them the rest of the country has also risen up. We need to join forces both within the Peruvian society, but also calling on the international community to recover democracy and to find a political and popular solution where the Peruvian people have the leading role, the voice. It is time to give power back to the people.
This is the political outlook of a critical situation in the Andean country by political leader and sociologist Lucía Albites for teleSUR.
In Italy, the country's three main unions have called for a gas station strike. This is the first strike faced by the conservative government of Giorgia Meloni. The government presided by Giorgia Meloni failed to abort the strike despite a meeting held by Economic Development Minister Adolfo Urso, although it did manage to divide the unions that usually negotiate jointly. The Italian Fuel Station Operators Autonomous Federation appreciated the opportunities opened by the executive after the meeting with Urso and even proposed that the strike be reduced to 1 day. However, the FEGICA and ANISA trade unions said the government's proposals are insufficient, so they have made a nationwide call to extend the strikes until Thursday. Fuel station operators accused the government of not keeping a special tax cut on the liter of fuel set in 2022. A few petrol stations will remain open to ensure a minimum level of service. We have more news coming up for a final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In South Africa, a heat wave sweeping across the country has left at least 8 people dead in the last few days. According to preliminary reports, most of the deceased were farm workers from the Northern Cape Province, a semi-arid region bordering Namibia and Botswana. On the other hand, meteorological services detail that the nation has suffered extreme high temperature due to a warm air mass coming from neighboring continents, with temperatures reaching 40 degrees Celsius. Likewise, the European Union's Climate Monitoring Service indicated that the last 8 years were the hottest on record in the world. On Wednesday in South Africa, several thousands of people took to the streets to protest a prolonged energy crisis that has resulted in crippling power cuts for the continent's most industrialized economy. Protests took place at various locations nationwide, including the financial hub Johannesburg and the seat of Parliament, Cape Town, with an estimated turnout of 2,000 to 3,000 demonstrators. The scheduled blackouts have burdened Africa's most advanced economy for years, with the network operated by the debt-laden state energy firm Eskom failing to keep pace with demand as it struggles to maintain its aging coal power infrastructure. President Cyril Ramaphosa said it was understandable that people were fed up with the crisis and added that the government was studying the possibility of importing electricity from neighboring countries and increasing production from renewable energy sources.
The load shedding, it affects us all. I believe it's very bad, and it also affects the economy of South Africa. Now, as the leading party, the ANC cannot put itself on that because we know always ANC gets to blame for everything. That is, even that it's not upon their purpose.
The solution is a hydro power plant, which is a large-scale energy power plant built next to the ocean that uses seawater as a fuel source. So we use the seawater, generate electricity, and release the water back into the ocean uncontaminated.
On Wednesday, India and Egypt agreed to boost bilateral trade, and a meeting between Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the parties agreed on measures to increase bilateral trade to up to $12 billion over a 5-year period. The two countries also signed agreements to expand cooperation in cybersecurity, information technology, culture, and broadcasting. Modi and el-Sisi expressed their concern over disruptions in the supply of food and other critical resources due to the war in Ukraine. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is in Angola to foster trade, economic, humanitarian, and military cooperation between the two countries. In a meeting with his Angolan counterpart, Tete Antonio, to whom he extended an invitation to visit Russia, Foreign Minister Lavrov went over agreements signed by Russian President Vladimir Putin and Angolan President João Lourenço. These aim to increase bilateral cooperation in areas such as politics, economy, and trade, along with technical, military, and humanitarian assistance. Lavrov also referred to the long-standing friendship between the two countries, tested by time and history, and to how it will further develop under these agreements. We've come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.